The ferry cut through the icy waters of San Francisco Bay. The mist hung low, wrapping the bay in a shroud of mystery. The water, dark and foreboding, seemed to whisper secrets of the past, secrets that were waiting to be uncovered. A chill wind whipped across the deck, biting through my thin jacket. The passengers around me huddled together, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The cold seemed to seep into our bones, a prelude to the chilling history we were about to encounter. Ahead, shrouded in mist and shadow, loomed Alcatraz Island. The island seemed to float on the water, an apparition from a bygone era. Its silhouette was both majestic and menacing, a stark reminder of its infamous past. Even from afar, the island exuded an aura of dread. It was as if the very air around it was heavy with the weight of countless stories of despair and defiance. The closer we got, the more palpable this feeling became, wrapping around us like an invisible cloak. It was a place of shadows and secrets, a stark silhouette against the fading light. The island's outline was etched sharply against the dim sky, a haunting reminder of the countless souls who had been confined within its walls. As we drew closer, the ominous outline of the prison solidified. The massive structure seemed to rise out of the mist, its walls towering and unyielding. It was a fortress of solitude, a place where hope was a distant memory. Barbed wire glinted under the sullen sky. The sharp, twisted metal was a stark reminder of the island's purpose, to keep the most dangerous criminals confined, away from society. The fence seemed to hum with the echoes of past attempts to escape, each one ending in failure. The crumbling walls seemed to whisper tales of suffering and despair. Each crack and crevice held a story, a fragment of the lives that had been lived and lost within these confines. The decay was a testament to the passage of time, yet the memories remained vivid. This was no ordinary island. It was a place where the past lingered, where the shadows of history were ever present. The island's eerie emptiness was a stark contrast to the bustling city across the bay, a reminder of its dark and storied past. This was Alcatraz, America's most notorious prison, a place where even hope was kept behind bars. The name itself evoked images of hardened criminals and daring escape attempts, of lives forever changed by the island's unforgiving nature. The boat finally groaned to a halt at the island's dock. The sound echoed in the mist, a haunting reminder of the countless arrivals before us. Each step we took brought us closer to the heart of the island's dark history. The other passengers disembarked, their voices filled with morbid curiosity. They whispered among themselves, sharing stories they had heard, each tale more chilling than the last. The air was thick with anticipation, a collective breath held in suspense. But I felt a different kind of pull, a strange mixture of fear and fascination. The island seemed to call to me, its history a siren song that I couldn't ignore. I was drawn to its mysteries, compelled to uncover the truths hidden within its walls. I was about to step foot onto haunted ground. Each step felt heavy, as if the island itself was resisting my presence. The ground beneath my feet seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a silent witness to the countless stories of those who had come before me. The air seemed to thicken as I stepped onto the island. The mist swirled around me, creating an almost tangible barrier between the present and the past. It was as if the island was alive, breathing in the memories of its dark history. A palpable sense of dread settled over me. It was an oppressive feeling, a weight that pressed down on my chest. The island's history seemed to seep into my very being, filling me with a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. It was as if the island itself was watching, waiting. The feeling of being observed was almost overwhelming, as if the spirits of the past were scrutinizing my every move. The island was a silent sentinel guarding its secrets jealously. My heart pounded in my chest. Each beat was a reminder of my own vulnerability, a stark contrast to the island's unyielding presence. The fear was real, but so was the determination to uncover the truth. I was determined to uncover the truth behind the legends, even if it meant confronting my deepest fears. The island held many secrets, and I was ready to face them, to delve into the shadows and bring the stories of Alcatraz to light. Alcatraz Island's sinister reputation predated its life as a prison. Long before it became synonymous with incarceration, the island was shrouded in mystery and fear. Native American tribes once called it Evil Island, believing it to be inhabited by malevolent spirits. They avoided it, sensing a dark energy that seemed to emanate from its rocky shores. The island's history only grew darker in the 19th century, when it was fortified as a military base. Soldiers stationed there reported eerie occurrences, adding to the island's growing legend. In 1934, Alcatraz was reborn as a maximum security penitentiary. Its transformation marked the beginning of a new, even more notorious chapter in its history. It was designed to house the most dangerous criminals in America, those deemed too hardened and incorrigible for any other prison. The very mention of Alcatraz struck fear into the hearts of even the most ruthless lawbreakers. Names like Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz, became synonymous with the island's notoriety. These infamous inmates added to the prison's dark allure. These men, hardened criminals though they were, feared Alcatraz. The island's isolation and the strict regime imposed upon them created an environment of constant dread. The isolation, the brutal conditions, and the ever-present threat of violence created an atmosphere of unremitting tension. Inmates were cut off from the world, left to face their own demons within the cold, unyielding walls. But there was something else too, something that whispered in the shadows and haunted the cell blocks. It was an intangible presence, a sense of malevolence that seemed to permeate the very air. It was an undercurrent of fear, a sense that Alcatraz held something more sinister than mere human evil. The island's dark history seemed to have left an indelible mark, one that could not be easily explained or dismissed. The guards, hardened men themselves, often spoke of strange occurrences. They were not immune to the island's eerie atmosphere and often shared stories of their own unsettling experiences. Unexplained noises, cold spots, and shadowy figures glimpsed at the edge of vision became part of the island's grim folklore. These phenomena were reported so frequently that they became an accepted part of life on Alcatraz. Even the most skeptical inmate couldn't entirely shake the feeling that something was amiss on Alcatraz. The island's dark reputation was more than just a product of its infamous inmates and harsh conditions. It was a place where the line between reality and the supernatural seemed to blur. The creaking of old cell doors, the distant echoes of footsteps in empty corridors, and the chilling drafts that seemed to come from nowhere, all contributed to the pervasive sense of unease. Guards patrolling the prison at night often felt as though they were being watched, their flashlights cutting through the darkness but never quite dispelling it. The feeling of being observed, of unseen eyes following their every move, was a common experience. Some cells bore the marks of their former occupants' desperation, with scratch marks on the walls and floors. These were silent testaments to the mental anguish endured by those who had been confined within. As the sun set over Alcatraz, the island took on an even more foreboding appearance. The shadows lengthened, and the sense of isolation deepened, reinforcing the island's reputation as a place of darkness and despair. The weathered sign reading Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary stood as a stark reminder of the island's grim past. It was a place where hope was scarce, and fear was a constant companion. The clanging of metal doors, the shuffling of feet, and the murmurs of prisoners being led to their cells were sounds that echoed through the halls, creating a symphony of despair that seemed to linger in the air. Today, Alcatraz stands as a tourist attraction, a place where visitors can explore its historic site and learn about its storied past. Yet, even in its current state, the island retains an aura of mystery and unease, a testament to its history steeped in darkness. Plaques and exhibits detail the history of Alcatraz, offering glimpses into the lives of those who lived and worked there. But no amount of information can fully capture the island's haunting presence. As night approaches and the island is once again shrouded in darkness, one can't help but feel the weight of its past. Alcatraz remains a place where history and legend intertwine, creating a narrative that is as compelling as it is chilling. Life within the walls of Alcatraz was designed to break even the strongest spirit, leaving them utterly defeated. The cells were small and bare, furnished only with a cot, a toilet, and a sink, offering no comfort. The food was barely edible, the work grueling and monotonous, draining the inmates' will. Silence was enforced at all times, except during brief periods of exercise or recreation, which were rare. The guards, hand-picked for their ruthlessness, ruled with an iron fist. Corporal punishment was commonplace and brutal. Solitary confinement in the hole, a lightless dungeon beneath the prison, was a fate worse than death itself. Even the most hardened criminals lived in constant fear of the hole, but the physical hardships were nothing compared to the psychological torture they endured. The constant isolation, the lack of privacy, and the crushing weight of hopelessness took a heavy toll on the inmates' minds and spirits. Many went mad within the walls of Alcatraz, driven to the brink by their own demons and the unseen horrors that stalked the corridors. The island itself seemed to amplify the suffering within its confines. The relentless crashing of waves against the rocks, the cries of seagulls overhead, and the bone-chilling wind that swept through the cell blocks served as a constant reminder of their isolation and despair. Alcatraz was a place where hope went to die, leaving only despair. Among Alcatraz's many infamous sections, none held more terror than D Block. This was the place where the most hardened criminals, those who had defied all attempts at control, were sent. It was a place that seemed to absorb the very essence of despair and hopelessness. Located on the bottom tier of the main cell house, D Block was reserved for the most difficult and disruptive inmates. These were men who had already proven themselves to be unmanageable in the general population, and D Block was their final stop. It was a place of true darkness, both literally and figuratively. The walls seemed to close in on you, the shadows playing tricks on your mind, making you see things that weren't there. The very air felt heavy, as if it was pressing down on you, suffocating you slowly. The cells in D Block were colder, damper, and even more isolated than those in the rest of the prison. The cold seemed to seep into your bones, making you shiver uncontrollably. The dampness made everything feel clammy and uncomfortable, adding to the overall sense of misery. The only light came from a single dim bulb in the hallway, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the flickering flames of nightmare. The flickering light created an unsettling atmosphere, making it difficult to distinguish between reality and the figments of a tortured mind. The air was thick with the stench of sweat, urine, and fear. It was a smell that clung to your clothes, your skin, and your very soul. The filth and decay were everywhere, a constant reminder of the hopelessness that pervaded the place. The most feared cells in D Block were those known as the Hole. These were the cells where the worst of the worst were sent, the ones who had committed the most serious infractions. The Hole was a place of complete darkness, where the only sound was the beating of your own heart. These lightless dungeons were reserved for inmates who committed the most serious infractions. The darkness was absolute, a black void that swallowed you whole. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where days and nights blended into one endless nightmare. Prisoners were often kept in the Hole for days, even weeks at a time, with only bread and water to sustain them. The lack of proper nutrition and the isolation took a toll on their bodies and minds, breaking them down bit by bit. Many emerged from the Hole broken men, their sanity shattered by the experience. The darkness, the isolation, and the constant fear gnawed at their minds, leaving them haunted and traumatized. Some never fully recovered, their spirits crushed beyond repair. D Block was more than just a place of punishment. It was a place where hope went to die, where the human spirit was tested to its limits and often found wanting. It was a place that stripped away your humanity, leaving you a hollow shell of your former self. It was a breeding ground for madness and despair. The constant darkness, the isolation, and the fear created an environment where the mind could easily slip into madness. Many inmates lost their grip on reality, their minds unraveling under the relentless pressure. The guards whispered that D Block was haunted, that the spirits of those who had died within its walls still lingered, eager to torment the living. Whether these stories were true or not, they added to the already overwhelming atmosphere of dread that permeated D Block. Whether true or not, the stories added to the already overwhelming atmosphere of dread that permeated D Block. The fear of the unknown, of what might be lurking in the shadows, was enough to drive even the toughest inmates to the brink of madness. It was a place where even the toughest cons prayed they would never see. The mere mention of D Block was enough to send shivers down their spines, a reminder of the darkness that awaited them if they stepped out of line. It was a place where hope went to die, and where the human spirit was tested to its limits.